Welcome back to the Act Two podcast, a podcast for the real-life working screenwriter. I am Tasha Huo.
And I am Josh Hallman.
And welcome to our podcast. As a reminder, this is just one of the many things that we do. Act Two is a larger network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. I was actually out on the line yesterday wearing our Act Two Writers Strike Back shirt. And someone was like, "Hey, nice shirt." And I was like, "Oh, is this an Act Two member that I just don't know?" And he's like, "I love Empire Strikes Back." And I was like, oh, like, I guess the wording on the top that says Act Two is very small. All he saw was, anyways, please remember to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on any of this stupid banter at the top of the episodes.
What?
You can also give us a rating, write a comment. That's always fun. It also really helps our podcast, and it helps our podcast get seen by other writers out there who are searching for some podcast to help them with screenwriting, and this kind of boosts visibility. But if you don't want to do any of that and you'd rather just DM us with questions or topic suggestions, or you just want to tell us hi or whatever's going on in your life, that's fine too. You can reach out to us at ActTwoWriters@gmail.com, all spelled out, or on our Instagram or Threads.
Oh boy.
At ActTwoWriters.
We made it. We made the switch.
We made the switch.
Okay.
With, millions and millions of other people. You can also find me on all the things. I am Story Thursday on Instagram. I am Story Thursday now on Threads as well.
If Threads doesn't sustain, this is going to be a perfect little snapshot of like a peek in social media history.
It is. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram as Josh Hallman and Josh Hallman on Threads.
Yeah.
Which I don't look at, but we're good. We got it.
Oh, yeah. I turn that on instead of Twitter now. I'm there.
Wow. How is this going to be different than Twitter? It's like
It's the same.
people are just going to complain.
It's the same. It's just not run by Elon Musk.
We went from Musk to Zuckerberg, and everyone's like, woo.
It's so true. It's weird that, Zuck has become the hero.
He's failing upwards. He's like, yeah, this is great.
Typical. Anyways, welcome to the podcast, Joshua Hallman.
I'm so excited. This is going to be the greatest episode ever.
This is an episode where we talk about movies that have come out recently. Mm-hmm. So there will be spoilers.
Yeah.
We'll alert you when the time comes. No, this entire episode is a spoiler. Stop now if you've not seen The Flash and if you've not seen Indiana Jones, like Josh Hallman.
So this is what happened with me. I was supposed to see Indiana Jones yesterday. I had one window. We are currently recording this podcast at 7 a.m. on the weekend. I had one window of time to see Indiana Jones. I had my ticket. I'm ready to go. And then my daughter is like complaining about ear issue. And I'm like, we have to go to the doctor.
We have to go to Indiana Jones.
So I had this, I actually thought in my mind, I was like, should I just have Nicole take Amelia? But then I said to myself, no, I'm a father. I'm going to break the cycle of father issues. I'm taking her to the doctor.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful.
So I missed Indiana Jones, but I'm going to talk to you about Indiana Jones, and I'm fully prepared and ready to go. Spoilers and everything. It's for the podcast. It's for the greater good of the world.
I just feel so bad for you. I don't want to do that to you.
No. This is the life I chose, and I'm going to live with my decisions. So this week in writing.
This week in writing.
I want to tell you a story, Tasha.
Tell me.
Did I ever tell you my Inception story?
I don't think so.
Okay, so with Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out, I had a memory of something, and I was thinking about this. And so I went and saw Inception at the ArcLight on opening weekend. And we get into the ArcLight. The movie is freaking amazing. It's completely packed. Moment of silence for the ArcLight. We're watching this thing, the sound, the seating, the popcorn. It was just a magical time if you've been to the ArcLight in Los Angeles. So we're watching this movie, and all of a sudden it starts getting really hot in this theater, like excessively hot. And everyone's like, God dang, this. And I thought it's just because it was crowded. And then people are like sweating. Like my buddy next to me, we're like wiping sweat. And we're like, God, this is a really hot theater. And then all of a sudden, the lights come on, the movie stops. An usher walks out and says, guys, the air conditioning has broken. We can't finish the movie. And this was exactly midway through the movie. So we had watched half of Inception. The crowd in the audience goes freaking like batshit angry, groaning. Everyone's like, oh, they're like, you have to file out. I'm sorry, we're closing all the theaters. So we start filing out. And outside of the ArcLight is one Christopher Nolan. We see him on his phone just pacing in anger. Maybe not in anger, but he's just walking back and forth talking to someone. And then everyone's like, is that Christopher Nolan? And apparently he was in the theater watching Inception somewhere. And he wasn't too happy with the scenario.
Yeah.
So that was when I saw Inception. And that's my story.
What?
Your look is like, why did he say that? And also, I'm intrigued.
Follow-up questions. Mm-hmm. Who do we think he was on the phone with? Was he like, find an HVAC guy, get him fucking here right now. These people need to finish the movie.
I have no idea. I thought maybe in my brain I made up it was his agent. He's just mad. I don't know why you'd be calling his agent. It's like you calling 1L.
Just to be like, halfway through my movie and air conditioning went out.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
I mean, that's pretty painful. That's painful for that many people to be watching your movie. And for you to be in that. I know.
What was great about it, though, is that the movie really did stop at like the midpoint of I remember it was like an hour and 20 minutes in or whatever. Like it was the perfect.
Meaning like there was a huge turning point that happened or just timing wise?
Yeah, no, it was both. It was like the big midpoint, turning point, whatever. I can't remember what it was. I think he was like, I can't remember, but I remember looking at the time and then being like, wow, that was the midpoint of the movie.
Yeah.
And like it was just picking up and getting really crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, I think that's like a hook, right? I bet most people went back to see it.
Oh my God. Yeah. I went back the next day.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I'm very weird. I don't think I want to ever see, like, I don't want to go to the premieres of anything
really?
that I have because when I was in college and you do like little short films or whatever in college, I remember whenever anyone would like shift in their seat or cough, I'd be like, get the fuck out. They hate my movie or like I need to get out and I need to bury my head in the sand or something. I'm very sensitive.
Well, that's not going to go well.
It's not. No. Maybe I've matured since then. That was a long time ago.
Let's hope.
Okay. I have This Week in Writing as well. I've been talking a lot recently with a writer friend of mine about what makes a showrunner hire a writer for a TV room. And of course, the reasons vary and it's always personal or specific to that showrunner. But something that is sort of a general thing is, do you want a loud writer, a writer who's always pitching ideas like crazy in the room, or someone who's quieter? And I feel like overwhelmingly showrunners would choose of those two options someone who is louder, someone who is always pitching ideas, because I think what a showrunner is concerned about is getting into the writer's room and being lost and not having enough different opinions and enough different ideas and enough sort of crazy ideas being thrown out into the room to generate any kind of momentum to create the story, right? If you have a bunch of quiet people in a room, you might get 5 ideas versus if you had loud people, you're going to get 50 ideas in the same amount of time, right? So overwhelmingly, I feel like a showrunner would choose sort of the louder person. But this friend that I was talking to is a quieter writer. And she argues that that's actually more valuable because she is more thoughtful about her pitches. So those 50 pitches you're going to get from a louder person, 10 might be good, if that. But for a more thoughtful, quieter person who kind of is taking in the room, they're thinking about the situation, and it maybe takes them 20 minutes to come up with a pitch. When they do pitch, it's going to be really solid. It's going to be well thought out. It's going to consider character and context and all these things. Because what I have found is that the louder writer is great because, again, if you feel lost, somewhere in those 50 ideas is going to be something that triggers something for you. And that's what's helpful ultimately. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times those people who have 50 ideas aren't thinking about the context of a scene, what the characters would actually do. They just think of crazy fucking ideas. And it can slow the room down a lot because the room now has to entertain all 50 ideas, right? Like, Josh, if you pitched in our Indiana Jones TV show room, that there should be aliens, we now have to talk about, okay, like, do aliens work? And I will quickly say no. We'll get out of the room. We're not going to do that.
Well, now we're entering Crystal Skull territory.
But like that slows down the room, right?
Yeah.
Versus if you had more thoughtful pitches that actually had context and were grounded in what we were actually talking about, we wouldn't have to slow it down. So that was just an interesting conversation we were having between the different kinds of writers. And I feel like this is a sort of a longer topic to talk about at some point, which is the kind of writers that exist in a room and the kind of writer you might be if you were in a room, and how to kind of harness your natural sort of instinct. If you are that louder person who gives 50 ideas, or if you are that quieter person, or if you're somewhere in between, how can you kind of harness your superpower essentially to service the room in the best possible way? That's it.
No, that's great. That makes it almost sounds like you need a balance of loud and thoughtful.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the thoughtful people feed off of the louder people, and it's just like, yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think of it as if I'm sitting in a room and you kind of just have to feel it, like feel the flow. Mm-hmm. Like if people are just being too loud, you kind of maybe have to pull back and be a little more thoughtful.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because in a room I was in once, there was one of those loud voices, and the showrunner said to me, I need that person to talk less and I need you to talk more. And I was like, if I do that, I will have to interrupt that person, because the way that person speaks is just on like a constant roll. It just rolls into idea. So there's no room for anyone else to speak. And also his ideas take a really long time to get out. So like you kind of know what this guy's going to pitch within a few seconds of him pitching it, but he continues on for another 10 minutes. And so I was like, I would have to interrupt him and be rude. And the showrunner was like, you need to do that then.
Wow.
Because I need different voices. Like it can't just be this loud guy all the time.
Wow. That's interesting. It
is interesting.
The dynamics you enter.
Yeah, that creates like tension and like, oh man, Tasha's a dick.
Yeah.
Why is she interrupting me?
Question for you. I think I kind of know the answer to this, but what do you think is the proper way to interrupt someone like that in the room? So I'm talking, I'm throwing out my ideas. Is this one of those you kind of motion with your hands? We kind of do this in writers group a little bit, where if someone's talking, it's like, okay, you're done.
I don't want to interrupt you,
but I have a great idea.
Yeah. I think there are two tacks I take. One is, that's a really great idea, but that gave me an idea for something else. And then we're like riffing off each other kind of.
Yeah.
Or I just flat out interrupt them and I seem rude, but I think the rest of the room knows that person is just rambling.
Yeah.
So
you know when someone's rambling.
But yeah, those are the only ways. I feel like you're rude, or you try to be like, oh, that made me think of something else, because that is definitely the vibe of the room. Is everyone's like, oh, and then this, and then but then this. There is like an energy, a sense of just building off of each other's ideas. So if you can bill your interruption as building off of their idea, then that makes it feel sort of less asshole-ish.
In improv class, there's that term of yes and. Where someone says something, you're like, yes, and something. And I feel like in a writer's room, it is, oh, that's interesting. And so it's almost like acknowledging someone so you're not dismissing them, but also kind of dismissing them and going into your own thought. That's interesting is
That's a very Tasha thing to say, though.
Is it?
That's my turn of phrase.
Maybe-
That's interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I think I've taken it from you for sure because I've talked to people and if they've given me notes, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Also, and it's such a perfect way to maneuver either to add to the note or to move on from the note.
Yeah, very, very true. But we also, by the way, and I think of you every time this happens, writers often use yes and in the room. Like all the time. I think of you.
What an honor.
If you guys don't know, Josh has taken an improv class.
Yeah, I took that one improv class, which was great. Yes, and yeah.
Yeah, I remember it. You were talking about how it changed your writing.
It changed. It would help with my pitching.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And just that whole thing.
Yeah.
So obviously, when the new Indiana Jones came out, there's all this Indiana Jones stuff. Everyone's writing about the old Indiana Jones. And I saw this article in defense of the Crystal Skull. And the article, I think it was like a GQ article. It was like, time to revisit the Crystal Skull. No. Is it as bad as people think? And then it defended it. Then recently, I was on Netflix. And the movie White House Down is currently trending at number 1.
Whoa.
That's the Channing Tatum, Jamie Foxx. And I was like, how the hell did this happen? I still don't know how it happened. But it just got me thinking about the current time we're in. We have movies that just get ridiculed 15 to 20 years ago, or they don't do well. And then people revisit them and just completely defend them. Like, I feel like this happens now more than it's ever happened before.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a cultural thing. I don't know why people go back and revisit. Like, I remember this was all Phantom Menace stuff as well. I remember seeing the Phantom Menace. No one really liked the Phantom Menace at the time. I mean, people did, but then you kind of look back at it and you're like, okay, Lucas was taking some swings. I really respect that. And it just made me think about the appreciation of something in the moment. And why do we have to go back and revisit these things and then change our mind?
I guess because that's sort of what people do with art. Right, you're in a new time. You have perspective. You go back without sort of the current times or your current point of view weighing you down. You have a fresh outlook, and you're able to look at art in a new and different way. Mm-hmm. I'm never gonna watch Crystal Skull ever again in my entire life.
Really,
ever.
But for podcast purposes, that might be a fun thing for us to do.
Don't make me do it.
That would be awesome.
You're mean.
This would be great. But anyway, it just goes to show, and it made me think of like how some scripts never die, where maybe people don't like them in the moment, but 5-6 years down the road, they reread your script and they're like, wait a minute, this was awesome.
A new batch of executives, a new batch of people watching the movie. Yeah.
Maybe you're just ahead of your time, or maybe not. You never know.
Okay. I have one last thing. I'm sorry.
No,
that I forgot about. I went and saw No Hard Feelings in theaters. And if that's the Jennifer Lawrence rated R comedy that's in theaters at the moment. And I have not seen a comedy in theaters, and can't tell you how long. And a rated R comedy in theaters also can't tell you. I feel like Neighbors was the last one I saw in theaters, and that was quite a while ago. Definitely pre-pandemic. And I loved it. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was having a good time. The movie was not story-wise very strong. Mm-hmm. But I didn't give a shit. It was such a fun movie-going experience that I loved it. So I don't know what that's worth, but I think that that's interesting, and everyone should go see No Hard Feelings.
That's awesome. I went on a vacation, and it really threw off my movie watching.
It did. You went at the wrong time.
I did. I went the one week where I needed to be here. But I want to see that. Joyride just recently came out. And then if I don't see these movies now we're moving into Mission Impossible, Oppenheimer, Barbie territory.
You're done. You got to go now. I'm seeing Elemental this weekend, and then I'm seeing Joyride next week. So I can clear the books for the incredible July that we're about to have.
Okay. Is this it?
Speaking of which, let's get into some summer blockbuster conversations.
Let's do it.
You saw The Flash.
I have seen The Flash.
This is all spoilers from here on out, folks.
Spoiler time. I just want to start this podcast
Okay.
by saying I know a lot goes into making movies.
Yes.
I'm not taking anything away from anybody. I do not have a movie in theaters, so I know it's very difficult. It's like moving an entire country.
Miracle.
Like it is. It's a
Yeah.
miracle. So I don't want to take anything away. I'm just saying that in case it sounds like I may dislike certain.
I feel like the base foundation is we respect everyone and we love everyone who made these movies. But as
Yeah.
fans, we're going to talk now purely as fans of movies.
Yeah. So, what'd you think of The Flash, Tasha?
I loved it. I loved it. And it's complicated because of the Ezra Miller of it all. But I also thought they were great. It sucks, but the whole movie in itself, I loved, and it was long, and it didn't feel long to me. I thought it was fucking funny. I loved Michael Keaton Batman. It was everything I needed and wanted it to be. I loved it. Josh, how did you feel?
So I did not feel as strongly as that. I did not enjoy the movie like you have enjoyed the movie. I personally didn't think Ezra Miller was the right person for The Flash.
That's so interesting.
And yeah, I just, what's crazy is, first of all, Michael Keaton's the greatest ever.
The greatest.
And I was actually trying to think of when Batman wasn't awesome for at least one scene in any of these movies we've seen in the last like 20 years. Like even Ben Affleck, he had, listen, I loved me some Ben Affleck, even as Batman. He was a badass. Anyway, my point. So I heard that with Flashpoint, and I was telling you this, I don't read the comics, but I heard that in the comic, based off of the movie, or the movie that's based off of the comic, what happens in this comic is that Flash does something to go back in time, and he messes things up where Bruce Wayne ends up surviving, and then Bruce Wayne ends up dying. Bruce Wayne's father ends up becoming Batman because Bruce Wayne died. And then Bruce Wayne's mother becomes the Joker. And,
so cool.
And I was like, that's awesome. And I guess just at a bigger picture, The Flash seemed like the way it was being talked about was like, it was going to be part of this new James Gunn universe. And it was to be like this movie to save DC's like old movies, but it just kind of was like a standalone. It actually felt like a weird like knockout punch to the Zack Snyder era of
I think that is my understanding was that it's the end of the Zack Snyder era.
But there's
And,
still
this movie
Aquaman
was
coming out.
already in production. Oh, I didn't know that. It was already well into production when James Gunn came in, and he watched it and was like, "This movie is so good. I get thumbs up. I give it my approval." But I think he's taking a totally different direction now.
But so it's funny. I read that it was, since it was a multiverse movie, that it could have like branched off and tied into the Gunn universe, and this could just sit here. And then so in 20 years, when people need to revisit DC and go back, they're like, "Oh, hey, The Flash went into the multiverse and it connects to the James Gunn stuff." So it basically, I thought that's what was going to happen. But anyway, aside from that, I had just so many problems with this movie. To
talk about that for just one more second, I did read that, this upsets me greatly, that there was a spin-off planned with Michael Keaton as Batman again, which may or may not be a James Gunn thing, because I think he's like our age or slightly older. He's
James Gunn?
Yeah, he's older than us, right?
I hope so.
Me too, just for the sake of our career longevity. Anyways, so like Michael Keaton would be his Batman. So, but the article said that Kevin Smith had suggested that a spinoff with Michael Keaton was only going to happen if Flash was a success. And everyone is saying that Flash is a flop. I don't think it's making back the money that it spent. And that makes me sad because it means we might not get Michael Keaton Batman spinoffs. And that's really what the people want.
Yeah, no, he's gone.
That's what we want.
James Gunn is 56, by the way.
Okay, yeah.
A couple years on us. I think Michael Keaton was in the Batgirl movie that was scrapped.
Oh, shit.
He had a cameo in that, I heard. Anyway.
Let's walk through what you did not like about this movie. Story, structure, character, CG, what is it?
character didn't like. I thought like the Ezra Miller 2 characters were obnoxious. I know that was sort of supposed to be maybe his character, but it was just too obnoxious. And by the way, not to be nitpicky, we're not going scene by scene.
No.
But that opening baby sequence,
Yes.
first of all, that barista would have finished the coffee, or the sandwich that he was making. Just because Ezra traveled across to some other place, it didn't speed up the actions that were. He had long conversations with Batman and Wonder Woman. Anyway, so it just felt like such an odd choice. And I know maybe that opening scene was a declaration of what the movie was going to be, and it was kind of like, if you don't like this opening scene, you're probably not going to like this movie.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt about it. But it just felt so contrived. And like,
Yeah.
well, what can we do? Oh, there's babies falling out of this building. All right, so there's going to be falling babies. You're going to throw one in a microwave. And it just felt really weird to me. And I was like, is this really what this movie is? Oh, no. I'm out. I was out in the first scene.
Yeah. I do feel like that first baby scene is make it or break it for an audience. Paul and I were watching it, and we were incredibly surprised, shocked by this scene. Not only because the CG was very weird. Mm-hmm. Everyone looked just super plasticky and fake. But also, yes, like you're escalating this by babies, a bunch of babies falling out a window, and a dog. And they look ridiculous because they don't look like actual babies and a dog.
Right.
So it was very much setting the scene for prepare that this is the movie you're about to watch. And at first, I think we were both like, oh, God. And then we were like, oh, shit. Because it kept leveling up. Like that scene where everyone's falling and he's kind of freezing time a little bit, and he's putting a baby in a microwave, and he eats a burrito because his metabolism is low or something. I don't know how science. And he sends the burrito over, and it like it's in space and it floats, and it forget what it does. It like hits like a bunch of scalpels away, right? So that a baby doesn't get scalpeled to death. And so then at that point I was kind of on for the ride, because I was like, oh, this is meant to be a ridiculous roller coaster. And I just have to buy into how silly it is. And then the leveling up of the silliness became part of the fun of the scene. And then I think we traveled into different multiverses, you and I, in that moment.
We did. I was like, oh, I'm out. Like, and that was it. I was trying. I was like, I can't believe they just did that. That was really weird. And but aside from that, the Ezra Miller thing, I don't know if it's my own personal issues, things that happen with him. I don't know what it is, but I just was like, I have no interest in watching this Flash movie.
Did you not like him in Justice League either?
He was not my favorite in Justice League.
Wow. I mean, then that feels personal, because he, to me, was what made that movie in any way enjoyable. I loved every scene
I could see that
they were in. So I was just like, yes, I get double Ezra Miller. Absolute Ezra Miller as Flash specifically. I love their Ezra Miller. And also, like, they were actually two very different versions of Flash. Like, the Ezra Miller Flash that we know in our multiverse, who was in Justice League, was actually ended up being more serious in this movie versus his sort of younger version. Did you hate the younger version more, or hate both equally?
So I actually think Ezra Miller's a really good dramatic actor. Mm-hmm. I've seen him I've seen Ezra Miller in other things, and the alternate younger Ezra was just super obnoxious. It was just so overboard to me. I was like, there's no way I can watch the rest of this movie. So maybe it was that might have been the anchor to, throw me out. Yeah.
Well, Ezra aside, what did you think of the introduction of Michael Keaton Batman?
Freaking loved it. I loved it. I love that. I love the Supergirl.
Yeah, she was great.
I could have watched an entire movie on Supergirl, Michael Keaton becoming Michael Keaton in that territory. I think that's what it was. I was watching these two other characters that I was like really into. I was like, wow, that's really cool. They've been holding this one alien kid in this area, and then we've got Michael Keaton who's now in this current state. And I was like, those are the stories I want to be watching in this. Not this other story, which I just didn't personally find as engaging. That's all.
It's a mother-son story. I cried.
You cried?
When he had to go back in time again to kill his mother, essentially, to stop himself from saving his mother's life by adding that can of tomatoes in the cart. I cried so hard. Because you're right, Ezra Miller is a fantastic dramatic actor. And so when he cries, I cry.
Okay.
The sacrifice he has to make for the world.
Did you like...
You literally have to kill your mother. Like, very few superheroes are faced with that dilemma. It's, I can go save my girlfriend or I can save the world is an often sort of dilemma that they have. But to kill my mom, it's not even saving my mom. I have to go actively kill my mom for the rest of the world to survive.
I also felt like the movie jumped into the promise of the premise pretty quickly. It was just like, let's just get the Flash traveling in time. Let's just get there. Let's just go.
I agree.
And it happened so quick. It was like, oh my God, I went in this bubble and I traveled and I think I can go save our parents, Bruce, and or whatever. It was just like, oh man, okay, let's just get this.
It did happen fast. They
Which I appreciate
for sure.
Because that's probably what I would have done, to be totally honest. But
let's just get to it. Let's just get to this movie.
No one gives a shit about this other stuff. Let's just get to it. Anyway, so that's
what
that.
do you think of the CG? This is a big hot topic.
At least it was consistent in its poorness.
Yeah, it's true. It was it felt like it was an active decision.
Yeah, I think it was. I actually wasn't. The babies did throw me off, but the CG throughout, it felt intentional, which I actually weirdly appreciated. That it didn't waver. Yeah.
So, for those of you who are not familiar with the CG sort of topic of this movie, the director has come out and said that the poor CG that Josh and I are talking about is intentional. That's like the tone of the movie. That's absolutely what it's meant to look like, and et cetera, et cetera. And then some VFX CG artists who do not work on the movie, by the way, at least the article I read in particular, this gentleman did not work on the movie, but he has worked on huge properties in CG and VFX. And he just broke down the reality of what it takes to make a movie of this size within the time that they are given, which is usually very short, because the way studios release movies is they know when that movie is going to release well before that movie is done with production. And they're often trying to compete with other studios who are putting out movies around the same time. I remember going into a meeting once at Universal, and they have this huge calendar on the wall of their big conference room that is all the other studios and when their movies are releasing. And one of the jobs my boss had was to do sort of competitive, call competitors and sort of get the tea on when their movies are releasing. And so part of why she was hired was, and part of why all these execs are hired at the studio level, is because they have a network of friends at other studios, right, and other production companies. And so she would often call, just series of call after call after call, to try and find someone at Disney who would tell her when their movies are releasing, so that she could get that. And now I think we can Google it in a way but I'm sure they have to fact check. So point being, Warner Brothers knew they wanted to release Flash at a certain date, and we had to hit that date or people were fucked. And so VFX artists had to work extreme hours. And also, like, the way that this VFX artist was saying it is that Warner Brothers will send, say, like 10 shots to one VFX studio, and then 10 shots to another VFX studio, because that's how they break it up. It's like, oh, it's even. It's 10 shots for you and 10 shots for you. But maybe that second studio is getting 10 shots of the babies falling. Yeah. And the other studio is getting 10 shots of him just running across a bridge. Those are not really equal shots. Those require much different work, much more labor. And so certain studios are not able to kind of put out the same quality as someone else, even though they're given the same sort of timeline for those 10 shots, right? So what this VFX artist was saying is that the system is fucked and that the movie's poor CGI quality is because of lack of time, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. If
Yeah.
the director is saying that's intentional, but behind the scenes people are like, no, it's not. But it's the tone of the movie. The bad CG is kind of the tone of the movie.
Yeah, it is kind of the tone of the movie. Yeah, I'm not even going to pretend to know anything about CG. It seems like an incredibly difficult position to be in. So, but yeah, it was the tone. There were certain things I just didn't really understand. As this entire conversation's happening, I'm just itching to talk about Indiana Jones.
Let's get into it.
We just have to go into Indy. Go, Tasha. What'd you think?
Okay.
Give me give me your go, and then I want your rankings of all the Indiana Jones movies.
Oh, easy. So, as some of you know, my dog's name is Indiana Jones, Indiana Bones, Dog Couture, Indiana Bones, because I love Indiana Jones just so much. My rankings: Last Crusade, Raiders, Temple, Dial, and that's it. Those are the only movies that exist.
Okay, we'll pretend like Crystal Skull isn't there.
But Dial has made it onto the list. I might buy Dial of Destiny as a DVD and add it to my collection.
Oh,
yeah.
DVD. That's what I'm surprised about.
Well, okay, wait, small tangent. Someone mentioned to me that he thinks that DVDs might come back because people are so frustrated with not being able to watch the content they want to watch because it gets taken off. And who knows, some crazy billionaire CEO might just take their favorite show off of the air and never show it again. And people are nervous about that. So maybe DVDs will come back. And it reminds me of Phil, one of our former writers group members who was buying DVDs way back when. And we're like, what are you doing, Phil? He's like, we don't know if we're going to be able to stream these forever. We're
Fucking
like,
Phil.
Oh, Phil, you're so silly.
Phil's going to become a multimillionaire selling DVDs when they're coming back in style.
I wouldn't doubt it. So, Dial of Destiny, I told you I was going with low expectations, but that was a lie. I had really high expectations. I needed this movie to be great, and it was not. This movie was fine.
Okay.
And it was fine for the main reason being Indiana Jones should always be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
He was not.
Really?
Phoebe Waller-Bridge was the smartest person in the room.
Ooh.
And she was cocky about it, which made Indy not seem like the amazing hero I want to invest in the way he's been for all the other three movies.
Interesting.
And not only that, but she was in more of it. I feel like I got 75% Phoebe and 25% Indy, and I needed that to be flipped.
Really?
And yes. And Phoebe, her backstory is that she's essentially a con woman. And my thought is, why not let Indiana Jones be completely knowledgeable about archaeology and give you the Latin and give you the archaic Greek thing of this thing and solve those puzzles? And why not give Phoebe, let her lean into the con woman aspect? Like, Indy is not good at talking to people, for example, right? Mm-hmm. He'd rather whip you in the face or shoot you than talk you through something. So maybe Phoebe can step in for those situations. Maybe we need to steal something, like pickpocket something in order to get to the next moment that we need. And maybe she can be valuable there. But she was also like a genius archaeologist, just like him. And so again, I was like, well, then why does Indy need to be in this scene? Why is he in this movie if Phoebe can just do all of it? I'm watching a Phoebe movie now. I'm not watching an Indy movie.
So it seems like the balancing act of Indy, the main problem is they haven't figured out how to pass the baton. Mainly because it's like, do people want Indy to pass the baton? But if you want to carry on the mythology and the universe of Indiana Jones, you have to figure out a way to pass it on.
But the universe is not what makes Indiana Jones good. It's Indiana Jones. So I don't think we need to carry. I feel like I would see young Indy maybe, and I would invest in a really good younger actor who can bring me Indiana Jones. But I don't need to see Phoebe Waller-Bridge fighting the Nazis and finding artifacts. That's not why I care about Indiana Jones. You could put Indiana Jones anywhere and anywhere in time, and I love it because of Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones.
This is very interesting. This is like fascinating because I don't think you'll ever be able to, unfortunately, that time is come and gone. Like the peak, it's like seeing Han Solo again and being like, I want to see Han Solo, but you just won't be able to ever see the Han Solo that made us who we are.
Yeah. Can I tell you something horrifying?
Oh, please.
When I walked out of that theater, my mind said to me, Tasha, what if someone came to you and said, we could have infinite Indiana Jones movies if we use AI to recreate young Harrison Ford's body and just take all of his voice that we already have and just plug it in there with new stories? Would you take it? And I didn't know. I didn't know.
That's
what
the
I
first
would do.
step. That's, someone just slipped a drug in front of you. You're like, no. But then in your head, you're like, maybe. And it's the most addictive drug in the world. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's that. Well, so that means that the CG in Indy might have been pretty good.
You notice it. You notice when it's young Indy and it's CG. I was listening to an interview and he said that in the younger version of him, the de-aged version, it was really his mouth moving, I guess. So and also his body moving. So like they were able to really replicate, and they did a really great job replicating him, and even though they like sort of plastered on a younger face. Yeah, no, it was great. It was great.
You know what I love about this? In true Tasha form, you narrowed in on character. And I feel like this is a very important distinction in the movie that for those who may have not liked it for the similar reasons, they might not know why they don't like it. But I feel like that whatever you just said, and again, I'm going to see it, but that makes sense. And I actually enjoyed this conversation because I can now I'm going to watch the movie through a different spectrum. But so would you see a Phoebe Waller-Bridge movie?
I don't think I would.
Really?
They would really have to make the world and the story so interesting. Like above and beyond what we've seen in other Indiana Jones movies, so that I'm going for that, like the mystery of whatever history problem she's solving. But I'm not going to just go see it because it's an Indiana Jones spinoff.
So this is interesting because I guess the way to carry on Indiana Jones in the future, it's not through the world, it's through having an Indiana Jones, like having that character you just want to invest in. You
need specifically Indiana Jones. And this is nothing against Phoebe or the character that Phoebe plays. I think she's great and she's super fun to watch. But I came for an Indiana Jones movie and I got a Phoebe Waller-Bridge movie with some Indiana Jones on the side. But yeah, I would watch Young Indy for sure.
The adventuring. Was there good adventuring?
The adventuring was fine.
Oh.
I know. The puzzles were basic. The solves were basic. And Indiana Jones wasn't doing most of the solving. And the solves he did do were basic. I mean, I'm used to him having complex solutions to difficult problems and surprising me with his ability to solve something that I didn't even see. And he does not do that. Another thing, this is minor, but another thing that I was wishing for was sort of the epic fan moments that you'd expect. So, like, if you remember in The Last Crusade, Indy gets his hat in that movie, right? His young Indiana Jones, played by River Phoenix, and the criminal dude who kind of looks like Indiana Jones that he fights at the beginning,
right,
puts his hat on River Phoenix's head and kind of bows his head to the camera, and then when he lifts his head back up, it's Harrison Ford.
Peak Spielberg, by the way.
It's epic.
Yeah.
So the hat, obviously we know, is super key. In this movie, when we meet him, he's not wearing his Indiana Jones outfit. And then he changes into his Indiana Jones outfit in the opening set piece. And I'm like, I'm waiting for it. I'm like, we're going to get a fucking gear up scene of Indiana Jones. It's going to be so amazing. I can't wait to see what they do with putting on his hat. And instead what they do is they cut to him already wearing his outfit and his hat and his whip and everything. And I'm like, wait, what?
Wow.
Where is my moment? Like, we haven't seen him wear this outfit in years. You're just going to skip it? And they did. And like the first use of the whip is sort of a throwaway moment. So like there wasn't sort of I'm going to say fan service, but that's not really what I mean, because you shouldn't think of fan service necessarily when you're writing something, but there aren't those moments where you're making the audience cheer, right? And that's something you need to think about, is the cheer moments. J.J. Abrams talks about this, right? There were very few cheer moments in terms of someone who's going to go see an Indiana Jones movie because they love Indiana Jones. They just didn't bother with those moments.
Sounds like a James Mangold specific decision to just say, Indy's been living in this world. We're just going to put you into a world that this man lives in, and we're not going to have any cheer moments.
Not going to make the audience enjoy this at all.
Yeah, if it was a JJ, yeah, he's putting the hat on. He's cranking out that whip.
That's what makes you excited to be there. It's a movie. You got to have these moments.
I wonder if something like that maybe would have helped throughout the rest of the movie, because you would have already you've been like coming off of a high. You're like, okay, we got Indy. He put his hat on. It's okay. I can see some Phoebe Waller-Bridge now doing the Indy stuff.
I think that's a really great point. Yeah.
Wow. So where does the franchise go from here?
It should die.
Oh. Oh no.
No. It should go young Indy. I think it should go young Indy. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
You need to find the right actor, but it should go young Indy.
It's so funny because I think of spin-off. Like that's where my brain goes. I'm like, okay, how do you spin off this universe? Would you watch a movie where Harrison Ford is just kind of relegated? I don't know if he dies at the end of the movie, but like if he's just relegated to like a mentor who just people visit every once in a while. He's in like one scene per movie.
No.
That's
not who Indiana Jones is.
But that's who people eventually become.
How dare you? You're saying people age? How dare you, sir?
That's what I actually would find interesting, is the aging version of, like, that's what I kind of liked about Michael Keaton in The Flash, and like these people who kind of accept age. I feel like that's a vulnerability or an aspect that you kind of have to explore when you're these iconic characters.
That's very fair, and for me to argue against that makes me sound like an asshole.
No,
but it is something that Harrison Ford talks about in interviews, is he loved how he's introduced in the movie as the older version of himself. He loved being able to play this guy who's kind of fading out, I guess. And I appreciate that he loved that. But I don't love it because I'm trying to put myself in a place where I'm watching a movie with Phoebe Waller-Bridge as a new Indiana Jones going on adventures, who visits Harrison Ford at a museum, and Harrison is just, I don't know, grumpy, drinking, reading ancient cuneiform or something. And it's fine, but that's not why I want to go see Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, being grumpy and saying funny things. I want him to go on an adventure. I want him to be the underdog in a fight scene against Nazis and somehow, through his cleverness, get out of it.
Yeah.
I want all those things.
It does seem like he can do that too, because he's not like a traditional 90s action, beat 'em up type person. He does use his brains and wit to get himself out of certain scenarios. And so that is something that, to me, is really appealing about Indy and his adventuring, of course. I just had a thought, a vision. Here it is. Put it on the vision board. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
You just crushed Tomb Raider. It came out on Netflix. Everyone's like, oh my God, this is like the greatest show in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. Netflix somehow brokers a deal with Disney. They're like, Tasha, or maybe just Disney does this. They're like, we want you to do to Indiana Jones what you did to Tomb Raider.
An animated series?
It's animated.
Ah!
Where do
I mean, I would just work on that for the rest of my life and be happy.
That's it. That's actually where you're like, you tell your agent, I'm done. I'm good. Just keep me locked into this for the next 50 years and I'm good. Yeah. So I had that vision. All right, so we need to figure out a way to, I mean, we don't have to do it now, but because it's a tough target to hit where you are servicing old fans, like unfortunately you and I, and you are trying to market to a new generation. That's just such a hard intersection.
And you know what? Paul, after the movie, went to the bathroom,
contemplated life,
came out and said there were some young men in that bathroom talking about Indiana Jones.
What?
He said they were in their 20s, but I feel like they were teenagers. But they were like, ugh, that movie was so boring. It's such an old movie. Why are we watching it? This dude's like 80-something. Lame. And I wanted to run into that bathroom and just like that Mission Impossible scene with Henry Cavill. That's what I wanted to do.
Load up the arms.
Let's go.
Oh, no.
Because I can talk about Indiana Jones this way, but absolutely you can't say that. So I don't know if they even managed to get the new audience.
Oh.
Young Indiana Jones would do it, in my opinion, because then you don't have Harrison Ford. You don't have kind of this older, lumbering Harrison. And
did Indy have a son in this movie?
You want to know that?
Yeah.
They killed Shia LaBeouf off. He's dead.
I mean, that's not too surprising, but because I'm wondering. Remember back when Chris Pratt was rumored to be Indiana Jones? When it was like he was peaking during, like, would you watch?
Oh,
if Chris Pratt was his long lost son, and then all of a sudden he could take over the mantle. He might even be a little old to start taking it over. You might need a 25-year-old. Get in there, Tom Holland.
His son. I could see it.
Oh, this might be how we spin it off. A daughter. Is Phoebe Waller-Bridge his daughter?
Yeah, I mean, any of those things, as long as they are like Indiana. Unfortunately, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is not like Indiana Jones, so I'm like not excited to watch her character continue the thing because she's a con woman, she's all those things, and that's like not who Indiana Jones is. But if someone came in to embody him and was related to him, and then also visited him in museums as a mentor or whatever, I'd be down for that.
Wow, that we just brought you around to the future of Indy.
Spin-off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to go rewatch it and see how I feel. I don't know. I would love to hear other people's thoughts, but everyone I'm talking to, particularly people who love it, but also people who are just kind of whatever, I'm going to go see it, have felt that it is a mediocre translation of Indiana Jones, unfortunately.
This is weirdly making me more excited to see it.
I'm so sorry this conversation is happening before you see it. I really wanted you to go in cold.
No, I enjoyed this kind of version of talking about it and getting your opinion on it because I know how much you love Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Can we leave the podcast before we do the quote of the day with a quick story?
Yeah.
I messaged you and Paul about my daughter seeing Indy. I said, "Hey, is Indy too scary for Amelia?" Mm-hmm. And you both thought I was talking about your dog.
Yes.
I was like, wait.
Like, well, how does she do with dogs? Indy's really good about not jumping, but maybe we should keep her on a leash. And you're like, what the fuck are you people talking about?
I know you were probably so offended because I was like, Paul, I need your specific opinion. Tasha doesn't know. Yeah.
Are you going to take Amelia?
No, this is why I just go to things by myself. I just need to go. Unless she wants to come with on my time, then she can come.
Right. Okay, well, I can't wait to hear about that in This Week in Writing next time.
Yeah.
And Godspeed. All right, quote of the day.
Let's go.
Something has to happen in every scene. When you watch good movies, stuff happens. You learn something. You tease something. The story moves. That's it. Every fucking scene. From the start to the end, make stuff happen. Taika Waititi.
Boom.
Please remember to rate and subscribe. Follow us at ActTwoWriters for more awesome writing stuff. You can follow me, Tasha, at Story Thursday on Instagram or on Threads. at Also Story Thursday.
Josh Hallman on Instagram, Joshua Hallman on Twitter. I don't know. Yeah, let's go.
Okay. As always, the Act Two podcast is a production of Act Two, a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. This episode was edited by Paul Lundquist, music by 414 Beg, which you can find on Spotify.